Hello there, Richard here, the creator of the Top Hat Gaming Man. If you have been following me on various social media platforms for a while, you'll probably be aware that I own over 3,000 different games amongst my large collection, and I have done so by mostly working minimum wage jobs. So I've got many of these games for cheap over the years, despite the fact that the prices of retro games have been continuously rising and rising and rising. But despite this, you can still get games at a good price, and it's about knowing exactly when to buy. So today's video is about how to get both retro and modern games cheap today. And speaking of today, let's start this video off by speaking in a literal sense and discuss today, 1 week before Christmas. December has always been a great time of year for me to procure, a word I love, retro games. It's a great time because the majority of people have decided to wrap up all of their finances in buying gifts for others. So if you go on websites such as eBay, the competition level at the moment is far less than other times of year, so you can often pick up bargains at relatively cheap prices. Let's take a few years ago, for example, when I decided to procure my own in-boxed complete copy with a strategy guide of Earthbound. At the time, I believe Earthbounds were going for about £500, £600. Not quite sure what they're going for complete in box at the moment, but that was certainly the price they was going for at that time. I managed to get my copy in December for only £300. That's literally half price, an outrageous difference, and the reason I got it for that price, I was literally the only person who bid on the auction because this was December and nobody wanted silly games like Earthbound when they could be buying presents for their loved ones. So due to this exodus of people from the market over to buying gifts instead, it's a buyer's market. It's a great time to buy, and if you're into retro games, that's when you should do it. In fact, I've always done that, and sometimes I've even spent large amounts on credit cards this time of year, then paid it back over the 6 months in times where games are more expensive. So for example, if you spend £1,000 in December, you can then pay it back throughout January, February, March, April, May. Just as an example, because if you was to buy the exact same games in May, you would be literally paying double the price because there are so many more people in the market wanting to buy exactly the same games. January, now that's another great month to buy games, which is pretty obvious because everyone has maxed out their spending over Christmas, so they're just trying to get back on their feet. So January is often a great time for exactly the same reason as December, but there's another advantage as well, and this is where modern games come into this scenario a little bit. You will often find over this period that many people get unwanted gifts. So for example, this year I would bet that the market on websites such as eBay, Facebook groups, etc. will be flooded with used PlayStation 4s and Xbox Ones, or from people who didn't want systems, or simply people who need a little bit of extra cash at the time, so they're selling off some of their assets. Whilst it probably sounds pretty obvious to some that games are cheaper to buy throughout December and January, and I'm probably preaching to a choir, it still amuses me perusing Facebook buying and selling groups this time of year. There are often sellers panicking, worrying that the retro gaming market has completely crashed and they have wasted huge sums of money buying games at over the odds prices to sell on at even further over the odds prices, and they're wondering why they can't shift their games for top dollar this time of year. So I've seen them questioning it regularly about why they can't sell their games, and going over everything we've discussed in this video, it's pretty obvious why they would be having trouble shifting anything other than Christmas gifts over this period. However, apart from Christmas and the bargains we can get throughout December and January, there is often another time of year where certain games and console prices drop through the roof, which is fantastic at times, and that is often during the launch window of new systems. I made one of my best deals ever with regards to procuring a games console during the launch period of the Xbox One. I went on one of my local buying and selling groups and I saw a Wii U for sale. It was £150, came complete in box, came with this a special edition Legend of Zelda Wind Waker HD, along with Super Mario Bros. U, Zombie U, Nintendo Land, and Call of Duty Black Ops 2. If you add up the price of each of those games over that time period, if I had have bought just the games and sold them off on eBay, I would have got around £160 for the games. However, this was all of those games plus a complete in-boxed console for £150. That is a literal outrageous bargain. And for this reason, many people on the buying and selling group literally thought the seller was trolling, so was sending him all sorts of abuse and stuff like that. However, I thought I'd check this out anyway, and I messaged the seller and arranged to meet up with him at the local garden centre, because in fact, this gentleman ended up working at the garden centre. So I went to my local garden centre and I bought a Nintendo Wii U, of all things, for just £150 with £160 worth of games. So in a way, I got the Nintendo Wii U the year it came out for minus £10. That's the sort of ridiculous bargains you can get during console launch windows, because for some reason certain people get completely hysterical and will do anything by any means necessary to make sure they can get the console on launch. The reason why I got the Wii U for so cheap, apart from the fact that this gentleman wanted the Xbox One on launch day, is because he had previously bought the Wii U on launch day. So he'd already forked out a crazy sum for the Wii U and then decided, don't like the Wii U, I want whatever next new piece of technology comes out. And you often get a lot of people like that, surprisingly. They literally want every system on launch day, despite the fact that on launch day most systems do not have any games hardly. So buying a system at launch is a bit perplexing when you think about it. But for opportunists such as myself and yourself, you can pick up bargains from other systems. So despite the Wii U being current gen, at the time I got it for minus £10, which is amazing and one of my proudest gaming moments to this day, I must say. In fact, it was only a few months later that I got my own Xbox One for a bargain price as well, because I took advantage of getting an Xbox One over this December period, in which I believe it was just a case of someone wanted some extra Christmas money, so they were selling their Xbox One, and there wasn't many buyers for it at the time, so I got the Xbox One for really cheap. And then the following January, I got myself a PlayStation 4 as well, because someone got a PlayStation 4 for Christmas and didn't really want it. I wanted to shift it as quick as possible, so I got the Wii U, the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4, all three of those systems for way under market value, for simply buying them at the right time. In fact, thinking back, the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4 might have been a year after I got the Wii U. It's hard thinking back that far in time, but I definitely got all of them at great prices. It's just about buying at the right times, isn't it? So overall, if you want to build up a large collection of games, it really is about patience. Many people fail in building up a collection simply because they're too impatient and they have to have everything now. Like the amount of people who have to have a game on day one when it comes out makes me feel astounded, quite frankly, because I rarely ever do that. I do it sometimes, I must admit that, but I rarely buy a game on day one because I know I can get it for so much cheaper if I simply wait for 6 months. And if I wait 6 months, I can buy many more games at much cheaper prices in between. So that's how I've built up such a large collection. Literally buying games when they're cheap rather than buying them expensive. It's kind of like how people play the stock market, I suppose, only I've done that with retro games. It's just a sensible way of buying games, and if you like to play games and want a large library of games, there's not much point in often buying new things. However, even people like me who are patient in their purchases often make silly moves on occasion. Like, I've bought a system on launch day, funny enough, quite recently in fact. I bought the Nintendo Switch during its launch, simply because anyone who knows me will know I have an obsession with handheld gaming consoles. I bloody love handhelds. In fact, if you're yet to check it out, I have made a whole entire series called Handhelds Around the World, where I literally travel around planet Earth and review various handheld systems in different countries. I have covered bloody dozens of different handhelds by this point. So you can imagine I would want the Nintendo Switch, but the problem is, if I'm off travelling around the world making videos about handheld consoles, I could be somewhere pretty obscure. And when the Nintendo Switch came out, I was somewhere pretty obscure. I was halfway between Thailand and Cambodia, shifting between those countries. And the Nintendo Switch was not released in either of those regions. I'm not quite sure if Nintendo bothered releasing any platforms in the second world at all, and they probably only release systems in first world countries. However, it could be something to do with the fact that if you go around Thailand and Cambodia, you can buy pirate games literally everywhere you go on the high street. It's crazy. They do not care about piracy even one little bit. So it makes sense for Nintendo to not really bother with that market. However, I still got a Nintendo Switch there because you can literally buy anything in Thailand if you've got the money to do so, I can tell you that. So I got the Nintendo Switch during its launch week in a country it was not released in. However, I probably paid about 30% above UK market value at the time. So it was an expensive purchase on the Nintendo Switch simply because I wanted that little piece of hardware in my hands. We all have these weaknesses and desires, ladies and gentlemen, and I really wanted to play Breath of the Wild. In fact, I made a massive mistake. I should have just brought the bloody Wii U on my travels with me, because over that most of that period I was travelling for a year, I really missed the Wii U. It's a platform I really love. In fact, I love it so much that I'm going to release a really in-depth video on it this week in basically paying respects to a beautiful system. In fact, I love the Wii U so much, I ended up during my travels travelling from Australia to China, then stopping off in the UK just to grab my Wii U, then flying back to Greece. And I didn't need to go to the UK at all. I literally went there just to grab the Wii U. That's how much I missed it, ladies and gentlemen. A fantastic, underrated system. So really, I shouldn't have bought it just to play Breath of the Wild. Absolutely ridiculous decision when I should have just brought the Wii U with me anyway and it probably saved. However, the outrageous amount of money I spent on the Switch in Thailand. So that was an example of me being an impatient buffoon, which many of us can be on occasions. However, most of the time, I'll be honest, I'm not an impatient buffoon, hence why I've collected this ridiculous sum of games over a lifetime. So if you too want a ridiculous sum of games, get buy-in in January, get buy-in in December, and get buy-in during console launch windows. They are all fantastic times to make procurements. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any further tips you would like to share on how to get games much cheaper than usual, then I would love to hear from you in the comments section. Share your knowledge with the world. Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, I am now about 5 weeks clean from buying any retro games, as I am saving up for my next round the world tour, and everything's going well so far, and I'm enjoying, looking forward to spending my money on experiences rather than petty consumerist desires. Anyway, enjoy your consumerist desires. Bye!